In this example, we want to calculate the test statistic for a mean. So the test statistic we're looking for is a t-test statistic. So that is, we take our sample mean, subtract off the population mean or the assumed mean, divide that by our standard deviation, which itself is divided by the square root of the sample size. So the first thing we want to do is figure out which all of these things correspond to what in our problem. So let's start by looking at x bar, our sample mean. The sample mean, well, first of all, we have to figure out what our sample is, and it says right here we obtain a sample of size n with a mean m equals 65.9. So really, our m here is our x bar. That is our sample mean. SD, you could probably guess, since that's our standard deviation, that will be our S in this problem. So S will be 20.7. What is our mu, or our population or assumed mean? Of course, that always comes from the null hypothesis. So the null hypothesis tells us we have a population mean of 68.6. And finally, n, of course, is given directly to us, 549, the size of our sample. So really, all we have to do is plug this in to our t formula, and we'll get our test statistic. Now, just like with proportions, I want to do as little rounding as possible in the meantime, in the middle of these calculations, just to avoid too much rounding in my final answer. So I'll have 65.9 minus 68.6, all divided by 20.7, which itself is going to be divided by the square root of 549. So let me throw all this into my calculator. I want to use parentheses to keep everything in the numerator that should be in the numerator, 68.6, and then divide by, and again use parentheses to keep everything in the denominator that should be in there. So we'll have 20.7 divided by square root of 549. End the parentheses so that everything in that second set of parentheses is in the denominator. And I get negative 3.056 for my test statistic. So that is t equals negative 3.056. And that, of course, should be my answer, negative 3.056. So again, watch your rounding on all this. Plug everything into the calculator as much as possible without doing any rounding.